Hi, and welcome back to the HE Enable podcast. This is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, long-term health conditions, and neurodiversity in the British higher education system. I'm Kath, and this week I am joined by Mary France.
Hey.
Mary France is an MSc AI and data science student and someone who is incredibly passionate about global health and sustainability. She is also one of the earliest supporters of the show, and I am so grateful to have her on today. I can't wait to learn more about her story with you. So I think it's time we get started. Very exciting. So, Mary France, please can you introduce yourself and share a little about your background in higher education?
Hi, I'm Mary France. I was a bit eager there with my hey. I currently study a conversion master's in AI and data science at Keele University, which is where I also did my bachelor's in biomedical science, and I did that big old pivot into tech. I'm also a very proud Scouser and avid volunteer.
Amazing. I've seen you around London a couple times, and we hit it off right away. So I'm like, this episode's gonna be I'm so excited for this. Oh yeah.
100%.
Right. So, but let's get on to the bit that this podcast is all about, right? If you're comfortable saying, how did your disability impact your experience of higher education?
Well, funny enough, the first time you met, that's kind of the first thing we talked about. As both people that have ADHD who were in higher education, both doing like, while I was about to start my postgraduate and you were finishing off your postgraduate at
Yeah.
the time. And I think during my undergraduate years, my ADHD was first of all undiagnosed for the first 2 years
Same.
of me being in higher education. So that meant that I was dealing with my symptoms on being on max without really understanding what was going on. So things like my focus, my abilities to manage my responsibilities, not just my academic responsibilities, but literally just taking care of myself and balancing a part-time job was starting to really take a toll on my mental health as well as my just ability to produce good content, like not good content, but like good academic material, which was something I pride myself on for a very long time. Like in my childhood, like I was quite good at school. So I was like, yeah, like this is just a thing I do until it wasn't.
Yeah.
So keeping on top of lectures, um, revising consistently, um, writing my essays and doing a biomedical course initially. I had to go to practicals as well, managing my practical materials and my research. Like it was a lot. And yeah, I just got to a point where I was like, I need to figure out what's wrong with me. Not okay, yeah, what's wrong with me? That's what I'm gonna say because that's kind of what I felt at the time. And funny enough, one of my housemates and close friends was recently diagnosed, just about like the same time as me, and she kind of guided me through the process of how to get a diagnosis through the university, which I later found out is not a like a standardized process. Like not every university has the same tools available for their students to access diagnosis. Yeah, so I hope that answered your question, but it was not a great impact on my education, and it kind of got to a point where I had to take control, figure out what's going on. I kind of assumed it was ADHD, so that's kind of why I just went for the ADHD diagnosis straight away. Could have been something else, could have been an overlap of several things. But I eventually got the diagnosis that I do have combined type ADHD. So yeah.
Same.
Win.
I think we got diagnosed at similar points in our lives. Out of curiosity,
Mm.
mainly because this is what happened to me. Did you get diagnosed around COVID time? Did you basically get into COVID and be like, oh wow, I've lost all structure, this is terrible? And then like, or were you
Okay,
a little bit after
so
that?
I think my symptoms worsened after COVID or during COVID. Um, but I got diagnosed maybe around, I'd like to say
Okay.
2023. So yeah, no, it wasn't during COVID, but the symptoms got worse after COVID. Um, so yeah, like But I think this a similar like academic point
Yeah, similar academic
still.
point, but different time. That makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so I remember when we first met, and it was like when two people get along like mysteriously well. I think I spoke about this in the last episode, and I was like, "Do you have
Yeah.
ADHD?" And it was like, "Yeah." It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that explains. And then we spoke for like 45 minutes the first
Exactly.
time we met, just like bouncing
No,
off each other and
literally.
off the walls.
And I think our experiences literally mirrored each other so much. And it's so comforting as a woman who is neurodiverse, who also got a late diagnosis, to hear so many other, well, it's not comforting, it's annoying, but it's like, okay, I'm not alone, I'm not crazy. This whole thing needs to change, or more people need to be talking about it
I think
as
the word we're
well.
looking for is
So,
validating.
exactly,
All
exactly.
right, next question. Obviously, because you were diagnosed quite late, we don't really need to talk about accessing higher education because I think
Hmm.
we discussed before, like this call, that you didn't need to apply for DSA or anything when you were applying to uni. In that respect, it was quite smooth.
Hmm.
So we'll just jump to the next question. So
Yeah.
when you were already at uni in higher education, did you encounter any obstacles while you're at uni? And, did you overcome them? If so, how?
Um, Yes and yeah, I would say yeah. Um, I'm quite fortunate to go to a university that have a very well-defined and structured disability access resource. So they literally have a whole team that kind of deals with you from the point where you think you may need to be diagnosed, um, to the point where you're diagnosed and now you need access to whether it's reasonable adjustments, whether it's a specialist tutor or extra time and things like that. Um, so I did I did go through more obstacles before my diagnosis, which basically meant that I was going through the system, um, having to do more than the everyday student just to make sure I was actually getting the bare minimum done. Not necessarily the bare minimum, but just getting the uni work done, which meant that I did burn out quite quickly. But hence why I kind of made sure to get a diagnosis as soon as possible, because I knew that I didn't want to kind of spend my years in university regretting not getting the help that I deserved, in order to perform to the best of my ability. Um, so I think with the first obstacle that I faced was obviously managing my time, being able to focus on my university assignments as well as my other commitments, producing consistent academic material. So sometimes my grades would fluctuate insanely, and that's just because I was dealing with just fluctuations with my dopamine, and it's only now that I'm starting to understand what was going on. But before my diagnosis, I did not understand what was going on. It's like last month I was able to write 2 essays back to back the night before. Why can I not do it? Today. Um, so getting the diagnosis definitely helped overcome a lot of the obstacles, because Kiel does have a decent support system for disabled students, um, which basically includes once you're diagnosed and once you kind of go through the DSA application process, and they understand your reasonable adjustments. They're able to put that on the system. You can kind of advocate for the type of adjustments you want as well. And also you can review them as well based on how your circumstance changes, which was quite good to have. But I understand that not every university has this system, which is very upsetting and frustrating, because I do think that that is one of the reasons why my academic journey became a lot more comfortable after my diagnosis. It's kind of like the university had those systems in place to make sure that I was able to perform to the best of my ability. I'm not going to say that university wasn't challenging at all. Once I got my diagnosis, I was able to fly through. No, I was just able to access the resources that I needed to make sure that I wasn't burning out and I was able to complete the work to my best ability. Yeah. So Yeah.
That's a I yeah. I do you feel really lucky that you went to the uni you went to, like, in the end? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I know a few people who went to other universities, Russell Group, non-Russell Group, and whenever I tell them my story, they are so upset and they're just like, why can't every university have this? Like, why is it not this easy? And I personally think that we do need a lot more student advocacy. Um, like just people advocating not just for themselves, but for future students. And basically kind of questioning, okay, if one university can provide it with maybe half the funds, why can't our university provide the same thing? Because a lot of the things don't really cost any money.
Yeah.
It's just adjustments on the system, whether it's, okay, we've identified that this person has this, evidently they may need 20% extra time. Let's just chuck that in there. So it's something that they just have access to without having to write, the longest email ever explaining your situation to your personal tutor or your module lead. Um, like, please, can I have a bit more
Yeah.
time when that could already be prepared in advance, I guess, or like,
Yeah. And
yeah.
you think it would need to be more prevalent in like the Russell group as well? Obviously, a lot of universities have like very highly attending students all over the country, Russell group or not. But I
Mhm.
think you find with the Russell group in particular, especially like Oxbridge, like when I was in Oxford, I noticed a lot that if you're being like hyper academic and you want to go to what is perceived as the top uni, I
Mhm.
find that a lot of people, just because they hyper focus and because they're incredibly passionate about one subject, tend to be disproportionately neurodivergent. That's just an observation. I don't know if there's any stats to back it. But it would always like at both Russell groups that I went to, it was very much like I had more than one friend in at each uni I had to help through the diagnosis process for. Like,
Mhm. Exactly.
yeah.
It's quite interesting to hear though, because I think, well, obviously I've gone through a holistic approach to managing my ADHD, hence why I do lean more towards kind of targeting the areas that I've got control of, whether it's my lifestyle, whether it's my, my things like my screen time, my bedtime, understanding my distractions as well. Um, I'm unmedicated mainly because of my cultural
Mm.
reasons, but also just it's a personal preference. So being able to kind of understand why my obstacles were were there, aka like including the certain distractions that would mean that instead of doing my work, I was doing A, B, and C. So I am quite a ambitious person, so I can keep myself busy, but it gets to a point where I have to learn how to say no to certain things because I know that once I've got 20 commitments, I cannot find 20 minutes to do, a bit of academic reading or just like preparing my research and stuff like that. So yeah, it's quite interesting to take the holistic approach rather than the medicated approach, and then seeing how my strengths were coming out the more I understood my obstacles from that
Yeah,
point
that's
of
fair. I
view.
choose not to medicate
Yeah.
either, mainly because I was titrated when I was first diagnosed.
Mhm.
But it started massively affecting my sleep, which was like, just making everything worse.
Right.
So I've been doing the same for a couple years now. I still take the
Mhm.
medication like occasionally when I need to, if it's like a big fat reading day. But for the most part, I just kind of learn from my own brain. Um,
Mhm.
so you mentioned while we were planning this episode that you had to navigate getting your reasonable adjustments in both university, which you've already spoken about, but you mentioned you did like internships as well. How was that
Mhm.
experience for you?
So when I first was introduced to what reasonable adjustments were, I was a bit like, oh, like this sounds great because that's kind of just what I needed. Fortunately, with university, it kind of came with my assessment. So once my assessment was made, the assessor was able to identify areas where adjustments can be made to help my performance in an academic space. But when I started to complete internships, which is basically the professional world, I became very anxious because I wasn't really familiar with a more corporate working environment. I'd had several part-time jobs in hospitality, customer service, which were very fast-paced and dynamic, which obviously is great for my ADHD because I'm just like always kind of switched on, running around, juggling multiple tasks. Whereas in corporate, yeah, you may have that, but it may be at a bit of a slower pace. You may have a bit more control over what you're doing. You may have no control over what you're doing, but you're expected to kind of deliver at a certain point, work collaboratively with people of different abilities, different backgrounds, and that seemed very daunting to me at first. So fortunately, I reached out to once again my university services, and they basically just told me, okay, just go on ACAS. I think, yeah,
I
yeah,
guess. Yeah.
acas.org. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and they kind of just talk through reasonable adjustments for people, like for professionals. So I kind of had a quick read through that. So once I completed my internship applications, my interviews, and during the onboarding process, you're given the option to declare whether or not you have neurodivergence. Which I always say, guys, please, please, please declare. Like, I guess I'm saying this as someone that has had several positive experiences with being honest about my neurodivergence, but I do think that we need to be honest in order for the companies that we work for, or the institutions that we go into, are aware of how they can help us. And also it's the law. Like they are meant to provide reasonable adjustments. But yeah, so once I was introduced to my supervisor during my internship, I was very honest with my ADHD. And I was also honest at the fact that I hadn't worked in a corporate environment before, so that was a bit daunting. And he was very patient in the way that he was able to say, okay, this is what we already provide. So if we have quiet spaces, we have bookable rooms, you don't need to be in the office every day. But if you find that there's anything else that comes up throughout the internship, just flag that up with me and we can work
Yeah.
around it, and work on implementing that into your day to day. And then my senior supervisor was the one that even like reminded me that if your work pattern is not, if you're not as productive in the morning, just communicate that to your manager, um, and say that, yes, I will have everything in by this day. But since I work better later in the day, it might be best for you to maybe give me the task in the mornings rather than in the afternoon, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. So yeah, it was really cool to be able to identify my working patterns, um, my the areas where I worked really well in. So I was quite good at um, just like producing materials that I needed to. I loved getting feedback as well. So which is completely different to what I was like before I had my diagnosis, because I was very sensitive to feedback. I was just very like rejection
Yeah.
sensitive. But now that I'm very much like working through my ADHD holistically, I really look forward to feedback and trying to just build on what I don't know, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, did you find, just because I'm more curious than anything, when you did that internship, you said you preferred working later in the day. Did you
Yeah.
manage to like leverage flexi time? Was that something they let you do, or was it still within like a 9 to 5?
No, it was still within a 9 to 5. So I had like, if I had meetings, I was obviously at the meetings. I just knew that if I was writing things up, I was most likely going to do it in the later in
Yeah.
the day. Um, so that's kind of how it worked. I didn't actually utilize flexi time. I'm actually starting a new internship in a week or two, um, and that has quite a rigid um, work pattern so far, because it's a industry that is already quite it's a global industry, so there's certain things that are out of our control, and I will kind of just try my best to navigate that when I'm there. But if I do need to utilize things like flexi time and flexible working patterns, I will communicate that with my manager.
I'm gonna ask one more tangent question if that's okay.
No, honestly, please, like throw them at me.
So obviously when you're in the world of work, you kind of, at least I found that when I've been working this year that I'm benefiting a lot from having a fixed structure to my day and something to anchor myself to. Have
Hmm.
you noticed that in your productivity as well, that you're finding more productive, your mental health maybe improve once you have that kind of rigid structure to hook yourself to?
Oh, 100%. So even with my former internship, I I really enjoy the consistency, because that's one thing that I don't really have in my student life. So even as a master's student right now, I do have a lot of commitments. I travel every single week to go from my university house to my home in Liverpool to work a part-time job. Please don't ask any more questions about that because I got myself into a really silly
I won't.
situation. So that threw me off completely for a decent amount of the post like for a decent amount of the time doing my masters. And like I can't lie, during my masters I have been exhausted, and that's because of the lack of consistency, the lack of routine. Because at least that's one thing I can anchor onto. um but I think once you're working, whether it's in a corporate or just in a professional field in general, that consistency can help, because you can kind of manage your responsibilities and your moods based on what you know the day's meant to be like, I guess. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of start that internship and see how I handle it. But I am a lot more confident now, about my professional career. And there are also certain companies, so like Change 100. I didn't do my internship with them last time, but I only found out about them this year, and they are brilliant with their professional development tools, as well as just helping students navigate that transition from being a student, neurodivergent and disabled students, from being a student to being someone that's
That's
professional.
awesome. Right, we should probably get back to our
Yeah,
script, shouldn't we? We've done the
I know.
ADHD thing of
Oops,
going on a
yeah.
massive tangent. We do have a script for this, I swear.
One more thing.
So you've
No, literally.
honestly, so you've already mentioned like that your big piece of advice that you said so far is to declare your disability to people. Have you
Hmm.
got any other advice that you'd like to give to people? Might we go through the internship
Oh, I
process?
for the internship
Yeah.
process. So reasonable adjustments are not just for when you start your internship. They're also for the interview process, the assessment center process. They're literally applicable anywhere during the application process. So if you feel like you'd perform better in an interview if you have access to your questions beforehand, do that. Let them know, just reach out. If they can't do that, just because they want to give everyone a level playing field, just ask them what kind of reasonable adjustments can be made for this specific assessment format. So I've done several assessment centres that I didn't need a reasonable adjustment for, but they offered it, and the ones that they offered, I was like, actually, I think I'll be fine without. Um, so it's one of those that sometimes you might not actually need the reasonable adjustment, but just know that you have access to it. So please just be honest with the company and your manager, and also you would much rather work for a company who are for making sure the workplace is um, optimal for people of all different abilities. So yeah, it's also a good way to scope out um, a good company that are very like people first and values based, rather than just we want a robot who will work, work, work and not ask any questions.
Yeah, we do. I guess also I want to add on to that, to just be honest with yourself as
Mhm.
well. Like I feel like if you're like,
Yeah,
oh, I can power through this, I've got this, instead of like being
don't
being gentle
try.
with yourself, I feel like that could be a recipe for disaster. So be kind to yourself. Remember that reasonable
Mhm.
adjustments are a legal requirement. But also, if you can find someone who's good with them, that'll make your life a lot easier.
Exactly. And also they can change from your student life to your corporate life. to maybe your first year in corporate or second year in corporate, literally just be honest with yourself and take the time to actually review. Oh, sorry, my final piece of advice is like self reviews, like review yourself at every stage. If you feel like, okay, this pattern used to work 6 months ago, 1 year ago, why is it not working now? Have a sit with yourself, whether it's with your journal or with your planner, and then just kind of understand like where are your triggers coming from? Where are you dealing with different disruptors this time? Does that reasonable adjustment need to change, or does it need to be adjusted to, so for example, if your breaks are kind of like split up 15 minutes throughout the day, maybe you need to make it a bit longer, things like that. So as long as you're communicating it with yourself and your supervisor, in most cases, you should be fine.
Mm,
I hope that's
that's super
helpful.
helpful. You're the first person who's been on who's spoken about internships. I feel so lucky to have you on today, honestly.
Thank
Right.
you. Thank you.
Next question. So obviously you said you were at Kiel throughout your like academic career so far. Did you have
Mhm.
any like clubs, societies, or initiatives that made a significant positive impact on you?
No, I wasn't really too involved with the university life in that sense. I was more someone that got involved with the NHS. So outside of university, I was volunteering with the university hospital. So I didn't really get too involved with the university, and I also volunteered for an NGO. So I did not really have the
That's
capacity
fair.
to be in a club or a society. Um, but yeah, I think the best initiatives though were the ones that encourage students to actually utilize student services and just alerted students of what existed and what can be done now and what changes could come if students actually used, the surveys that came around every year. So I guess the initiatives that told students about what's available and what resources are available to them were quite useful, and made a positive um, impact on my experience in higher education. But I wasn't really involved with any clubs or
That's
societies
fair.
at
I
the
mean, if you
time.
know any of like good initiatives that helped you maybe in like the NHS or the NGO, you're welcome to talk about that as well. You have anything from that?
Um, Not really, no. They were not like higher education like orientated at all. They were very much like some things I did based on my values. So I'm very big on advocacy, which is why I've now started advocating for myself more. Like it's like I advocate for everyone but me, and then it got to the point where I was like, no, advocate for yourself, girly too. Um, so yeah, like no, nothing really stands out on that one. Yeah,
I mean, sometimes there just isn't, and that's okay, right? Like, we all
no,
live our
literally,
lives in our own way, right? This next question I
yeah.
always include, because I'm interested in people's reactions, not to kind of romanticize disability. But have you ever
Right.
experienced any instances of your disability potentially proving helpful when you were in higher education?
Um, yeah. Funny enough, the thing that I mentioned was an obstacle, but was also a big strength. So I'm always someone that wants to like extend myself as far as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Um, and that has allowed me to have such a diverse range of experiences that are so unique. So whether it was my volunteering experience, which then helped build my dissertation title, which was also a first class.
Woo.
um, so yeah, so I think my ability to manage multiple responsibilities or just my curiosity, like I'm never switched off. Like I will always find something that I can research until literally like the next sun comes. So I think my ability to kind of stay switched on, stay curious. I love learning, and I think that the frustrating thing about higher education is that it's still learning, of course, but it's in a very like confined, rigid format. And I think that people with ADHD still have that thing of I want to know everything. But then once you like open the topic or you start it, you're like, if it has to be like this, I don't want to learn anything at all. So I have fallen in love with learning again, and being able to kind of um love several things at once has played. Sorry, I didn't really know how to explain it properly, but just like my curiosity, my ability to, once I'm interested in something, I can really dig deep and make it, and then create something out of that, which I guess would be my adaptability. Like I am a very adaptable person, and I think that my ADHD does play in that. I love fast-paced environments. I love, you know, sorry. I feel like I'm gonna
No, I
waffle
love the
about
waffle,
this because
honestly.
this is literally something I get. This is something I really care about. I just think that I just wish higher education wasn't as rigid as it is. Obviously, I think it's good for um, certain people. Like it's a system that's existed before we were even thought of, before our ancestors were even thought of. So it works. However, it might not be as accommodating for a lot of different talents that humans have, whether neurodivergent or not. Um, I'm not going to say that ADHD is like the easiest thing to have. Like, no, it is
Yep.
exhausting. It gets to a point where I literally need like 2 months to just
Yep.
rest and just kind of put everything down. Literally, whether it's like my volunteering, I was going down significantly. I'm not really doing anything. I have to do those things just to be able to like make it through the rest of the year. But once I'm switched on again, I guess I can do things that I guess some people can't even dream of. Like some of the responsibilities I've had, some of the roles I've been able to get, some of the experiences I've been able to get are down to the features, my features that could be because of my ADHD. However, that doesn't mean that I've always done the right thing. So there are times when I'm like, okay, maybe I could have said no to that. And then I wouldn't have to balance 20 things on top of my academic responsibilities. But I think also my ADHD makes me think I can do anything that I put my mind to until the deadline
I mean,
comes.
to be fair, two things. Hyperfocus is a mysterious beast, which can work in mysterious and fickle ways. But also, like, as
Okay.
someone who got a D in their GCSE French and then did a master's degree in linguistics at Oxford, I have also had weirdly aspirational episodes, and they worked out quite well.
I'm telling
Honestly,
you, like,
right.
this is not advice. Please do not take this as advice. But yeah,
Be smart and reckless at the same time. Just make it work. You'll be fine.
no, literally,
Right.
literally.
We have had such a lovely conversation that I'm very aware of time. We're going to quick fire these last few questions, okay? You good with
Of
that?
course,
Dope.
please.
Right.
I'm
Awesome.
ready.
So we've got 3 more questions. Is there anything you
Hmm.
wish you had known about university before you started?
Ooh. Hmm.
Hmm?
Sorry, this is meant to be
No,
quick
you're good,
fire,
you're
and
good,
I'm
you're
like,
good. We're building the tension.
Yeah.
We're building the tension.
Um, hmm. Advocate for yourself. So I think, yeah, university is a time for learning, not just in the lecture hall, not just in the library, but in a completely new environment. Whether you decide to stay at home or move from home, move to a whole different country, um, really take this time to learn more about yourself. So I think university does give you a bit more control over your time, depending on what you study and where you study and stuff like that. But you can kind of choose where to allocate your time outside of your academic responsibilities. And when you do decide to do that, make sure you're kind of reflecting on how you feel, what you're learning, how you can kind of apply this to, I don't know, a future job role, a future volunteering spot, future research. Um, but yeah, I think I wish I knew that university was really going to be place for me to learn just every single day, whether I was on campus, whether I was off campus, whether I was at my part-time job. It's just, yeah, I wish people kind of knew that. I think some people do know that it's a place to learn, obviously. Or they might just do that. They might just, just be fully engulfed by their coursework and deadlines and assignments, but there's a lot more learning to
Yeah.
do that goes beyond what contributes to your final degree classification. I hope that makes
Yes, you
sense.
learn about the
Yeah.
world instead of your subject as well. The world and yourself and your subject, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of learning out there. I really like that answer. Right, we've kind of touched on this next one, but what are you doing nowadays, and how have your past experiences affected this?
So I finished my last exam
Woo, I'm proud of you.
last week. Thank you so much. I still have a dissertation due in September, but that's summer. That's the summer me. The summer me has to deal with that.
With the summer music and the
But
sun and you'll be fine.
literally, and the tears.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, basically 80% of my masters now. I'm heading into a new internship in a completely new industry that I've always been really curious about. And I worked very, very hard to get this internship. It was insanely competitive, but I'm really glad that I've got it now. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've met most of the team now as well, and they're just really, really good people. The company stands for something really good, which is, I'm a very values-based person. So I'm very excited to be able to contribute to something that has like global impacts rather than just national impacts as well. So exciting times ahead. And I think my past experiences with higher education, my ability to just kind of be extremely resilient, which I think is the word to literally describe myself. That experience has allowed me to get this far, whether it's through, sending out a million, no exaggeration, internship applications, completing how many assessment centers and online assessments. I was still resilient. I just kind of, at every stage, I was dealing with a lot, but I still managed to push through because I kind of knew that this is something I really wanted. So yeah, I think my ability to just push through and make sure that I, in the end, actually finish what I started, has gotten me to where I am now, and I cannot complain at all.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really, really good to hear.
you.
I know you're also
Thank you.
moving around my area for this, wanting to meet up for a coffee and a non-podcast
Right, and a
discussion.
free coffee,
Oh,
hopefully.
I'll grab it. Fine. It's on me. Right. Last question. You have had little pearls of wisdom throughout this entire episode. It's been wonderful.
Of course.
We are going to take all of that and we're going to consolidate it into one, look at the time, hopefully quite quick question. What is one key takeaway that you would like listeners to remember from your story?
I'm kidding. Take the time to understand your disruptors, your strengths, and your weaknesses, and continue to advocate for yourself and others in your community. We're in a very interesting, to say the least, political climate right now, where a lot of people's rights are no longer, or a lot of people's rights are being taken away or being questioned.
Yeah.
This is the time to continue to stand up for neurodiverse, disabled, and people who may just be going through a tough time. We need to make sure that accessibility is quite literally at the forefront of what you do. So even if you don't want to access those resources as a disabled student, it shouldn't mean that they shouldn't exist for the next generations to come. Yeah,
I love that.
I think that's the advice I want people to take
I
away.
love that. Right, we're done. We finished the questions.
Woo! K-picnic.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to do my spiel, okay?
No worries.
So, HE Enabled is the show all about sharing our experiences of disability, neurodiversity, and long-term health conditions in the British higher education system. If you are interested in coming on the show, I am always looking for new people to share their stories. You can get in touch at heenabled@gmail.com. There should be a link to that in the Spotify description. Marie-France, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful discussion.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Well, you know, ever since we met, I was just really inspired by our conversations, being women, experiencing higher education as neurodivergent girlies as
Indeed.
well. So it's really cool that you've literally made this amazing platform for people to share their
Thank you.
stories.
And you've also been a big supporter, and I really do appreciate that. So we will
Biggest
continue.
fan.
Thank you. Hopefully this collaboration continues for a long time. All right, take care.